Hey everybody, this is Scott from Watchuseek, and today we are going to look at the Eterna Super KonTiki Chronograph. So I was not very familiar with the Eterna brand, and this past spring I was able to meet with them at Baselworld and see a variety of their watches, and I was really impressed with the KonTiki line. It has a very kind of unique aesthetic. And I was surprised in doing research for this how old Eterna is as a company. Eterna started back in 1856 as a movement manufacturer, and then in 1875 they started making watches under their own brand Eterna. So, and one piece of history in the movement world is that back in 1948, Eterna came out with the first wristwatch that incorporated ball bearings in the rotor assembly. And if you look here at their logo, you can see the 5 circles there. That represents the ball bearings on the rotor. Never knew that. And another thing that's pretty interesting is Eterna was the parent company of ETA. So the ETA movement manufacturer that we all know that's part of the Swatch Group now was part of Eterna back in the day. Pretty interesting history, been around a long time, and so now we have something here called the KonTiki. So this is the Super KonTiki, and I asked a few people, hey, do you know about the KonTiki expedition? And I got a bunch of blank stares, so I'll give you a brief history of what the KonTiki expedition was. And that was an expedition that was led by Norwegian Thor Heyerdahl back in 1947, and his theory was that the Polynesian peoples could have originated from South America. So he went out to prove that you could get from South America to the Polynesian islands using traditional methods from pre-Columbian times. So he, along with 5 other folks, set out with a raft that they made using materials that would have been available in the times. And they did have some modern things as well as the radio. They did have watches, and the watches that they used were Eterna watches. So in 1958, Eterna came out with the KonTiki line, and since then has been coming out with watches, more sporty, waterproof, dive-type watches in the KonTiki line. Okay, so let's talk about the case on this Super KonTiki. So first off, the shape is a cushion shape here. So, we've seen this with Doxa and, of course, Seiko. So kind of a popular diver's type of a retro shape here. It is a larger watch. It's 45 millimeters. It's 51 millimeters lug to lug. 22 millimeter spacing here for the strap, and we come in at 16 millimeters tall. So it has a 200 meter water resistance, and on the case itself we have brushing on the top here and on the sides. And then there is a polished part that runs from lug to lug here. Really breaks up the shape, and that's a bevel on there. So we go from a flat side to a bevel to the top here. On the back of the case, it is polished on the main case part, and then the screw-in case back is brushed here with an exhibition back here. And that's something you don't normally see on a what I would call a dive watch or a tool watch, but certainly it's nice to see their movement in there. And it still keeps the 200 millimeter rating, so I guess nothing to worry about with that. It does have a screw-in crown here, screw-down crown, and then you have the pushers. So these are not screw-in type pushers, and of course, never want to use these underwater or anything. But that's nice with it's a big crown, has nice knurling on there, easy to use. The bezel, it sits nice and tall, so easy to turn. It's a 120 click on that guy. And we'll get that centered back up there. So, and it has an aluminum insert with the markings around there. So that's the case. So I know I've talked about the case already, but when I was doing my photography of the case to augment the video, I noticed something that I don't know how I didn't notice it, but the crown here, inside the crown, you can see the ball bearings of the Eterna logo are set into the crown, but the crown it's a like a scooped on the inside, and then this material here is like a sapphire or some kind of glass or something where these I'm not sure if they're full ball bearings or just half, but I saw that and I'm like, that's a really cool touch that on first inspection, yeah, I saw the logo there. I just thought it was kind of printed or something etched in there. Well, it's super smooth when you touch that guy. Anyway, I thought that was really cool. And one other point I want to make about the case, when we look at this case design, I think that the reason for this shape is to make these lugs incredibly strong and incredibly part of the case, right? So if you're really using this as a tool watch, the last thing that you need is your watch to fall off your wrist because your lug got bent and the spring bar fell out and then you've got problems. Well, with this kind of a case design, you're not going to have that problem. So just a couple further observations on the KonTiki. Okay, so let's talk about the dial on this Super KonTiki. And this dial, there's a lot going on. There's definitely some depth to it. And I'm just kind of zoom in here and so we can see it without you guys getting dizzy without it moving around. And first off, these guys here, they're applied markers that are loom filled. And I will say the loom on this guy is great. It is very, very good loom. I'll put some loom shots up. I had a lot of fun photographing it, taking the loom shots. And so we've got these triangles. And these triangles here are kind of the design cue, if you will, of the KonTiki line. Then we have the two sub-registers here, and the sub-registers have a white kind of circle here, or it is a circle, with markings on it. This is the running seconds, and then this is the chronograph readout here. And then on the inside of the sub-dials, you have a circular pattern in there. So running seconds over here, and then this is the chronograph. And usually when you see, a bicompax chronograph with two registers, you think, well, that's a 30-minute or maybe a 60-minute. But if you look here, there's actually two hands here. So on the inside here, we have hour markings, and then the outside we have minute markings. So the white ring is for 30 minutes, and then the inside here is for 12 hours. So definitely a cool way to tell the time. Now, the one thing that can be kind of confusing is that you have to remember that the outside here is only 30 minutes. So, you see the hand here, you think, well, that's 5 minutes. Well, that's not 5. 5 minutes would be out over here. So no big deal. You just need to remember how that works. We have a date down at 6 o'clock down here, and it kind of balances everything out in this vertical line here. So we've got there's some text up here, the Eterna, we've got KonTiki Super, and so you get this kind of this stuff that fills that void there. The dial is a sunburst blue dial that is phenomenal. You go outside in the sun when the sun hits it, and you get this lovely sunburst pattern on there coming out from the center. I do like the blue. It's a very nice shade of blue. It's not too electric, and it's not like a gray blue or anything. It's just a very nice blue. So the one other thing is that the registers, the sub-registers here, they are stepped down from the dial. So you have the dial here, then it steps down to the outer ring, and then it steps down again to the inner circle here. So again, giving it some depth. This is bringing it up with the applied markers, and then that's going down. And then on the inside bezel here, we have the markings here for the minutes. And so we can talk about the hands. So that's the chronograph hand there. I'll just start the chronograph here so you can see that guy moving around. And then we have, there is a little bit of loom on there. We have loom on both of these hands, and the hands have a little bit of a bevel to them, so it catches the light at different angles. But overall, very easy to read. I will say, as you can see right here, that, and it's a problem with a lot of chronographs, you have a bigger hand here, then it can cover over your subregister here and make it a little difficult to read. So other than making just like a thin super hand, there's really no way around that. So I like the dial. There's a lot going on. The way it catches the light is really nice. So overall, a fun watch to have on the wrist. And this is the Eterna Caliber 3916, which is a flyback column wheel chronograph. And the 3916 falls under the Caliber 39 from Eterna. Now, the Caliber 39 is relatively a new movement from these guys, and it is a module movement, meaning there is 88 different variations. So obviously, Eterna is really looking to be able to supply other watch manufacturers with this movement in a variety of different functions, whether it's a chronograph, a three-hander, all that type of thing. So the movement is nicely finished. You've got some nice finishing on the rotor here, and there is definitely some depth to it. You can see, the escapement down here. And the finishing on the plates is nice. It's definitely, like I was saying earlier, it's rare to see a crystal exhibition back on a dive watch or a tool watch, but this certainly gives you something to look at. You can see that big column wheel in there. So pretty cool. Hats off to Eterna for putting the money and the resources into a movement, really going back to their roots from where Eterna started. So let's talk about how the chronograph functions. So there are two pushers, right? We have the pusher here at 10 and 10. So I'm looking at we have the pusher here at 2 and at 4. And you can see right here that little hand there, that is the running seconds for the chronograph. So that's recording the passage of time. If I push the pusher at 2, it stops. If I push it again, it starts. Okay? And then in this subregister here, you'll see a small hand, and that is going to point to the hours. And then the longer hand is going to point to the minutes. So we have a 30-minute register around the outside, and then a 12-minute register, or a 12-hour, register on the inside, which is a little different. There's not a lot of companies that use two hands. I know IWC does, I believe, and I think Omega on their Speedmaster 57. So I like it. It cleans up the dial from one less sub-dial, but you still get the readout where you need it. The interesting thing about this movement is this is a flyback chronograph. So you can see I can stop, start, but let's say I need to literally reset it really quick. To reset, I would need to push this button, and you see all the two hands there, and then this running seconds goes back to 0. But this has a special feature. This is called the flyback. So as I'm going here, so my running seconds are here, I can push this and quickly release it, and it will instantly start, reset, and then start again. So as a car's running past me or whatever you're timing, and you can say, okay, here we come, and they cross the finish line, that's 15 seconds, and then I restart for the next lap. So you have to be paying attention to that, but it saves you literally a second or two from stopping, reset, and starting again. So the flyback function of a chronograph is a pretty cool function. And I just had in a column wheel chronograph from Tag Heuer on their new Atavia, and I was mentioning how nice the feel is on the pusher. And I will say this is even nicer. I really like the feel, and that when you look at that second hand there, it is just such a positive stop and start. There is no flutter to that. It doesn't move around. It's a very well engineered chronograph movement. And just because I can, I will hit the. We'll wait till I'll speed this up here, and we'll get to where these guys move out a little bit, and then we'll reset the chronograph. Okay, and we're back. So you can see on the sub-register here that the minutes hands has moved 3 positions. So we're at 3 minutes, and it is a jumping second hand or minute hand. So when this comes around, it jumps. So watch when I reset this flyback here, that hand will jump back to 0, as well as my seconds hand here. So okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, bam. That's cool. So all in all, a pretty cool chronograph, and I love that flyback function, and it has such a cool feel. Okay, so this version of the Super KonTiki comes on a blue rubber strap here, and I will say that the strap does match the heft and brute feeling of this watch. It's a very nice, comfortable, flexible strap. It has some nice pattern on the inside, and I think this allows a little breathability of the rubber on you there. It has a signed buckle here with the Eterna logo there. It's brushed and then polished on the sides. It has 2 keepers, one that's stationary in there, and then this is a floating one. So easy. Comfortable strap, easy to wear. There is another version that is available with a metal strap. So let's get this on the wrist and talk about how it wears. Okay, so here is the Super KonTiki on my wrist. And, I'm not going to, there's no hiding the fact that this is a 45 millimeter watch that's 16 millimeters tall. It is a fairly big watch on the wrist. And, I know a lot of folks like a big watch, and I'm kind of, Eterna's probably going to get mad at me because I kept this for a couple extra days because I wanted to wear it. I actually, what's it really like to wear? And I will say, yes, you have a big watch in the wrist. It's not mine, it's for a loaner, so I was very careful with walking through doorways and things like that. And but it has a different feel. I have smaller watches and they're great, but I having a larger watch in the collection, it'd be kind of fun, And the fact that it is so tall, I will say that it's real easy to grab the bezel here. It's a tall bezel on there, very easy to grab. And the chrono pushers, very easy to work. You can see how they're sitting proud off of my wrist there. Really easy to stop, start, reset if I need to. So that it's very functional. And I didn't, maybe the rubber grips nice. And like I said, the rubber strap is a nice hefty strap, and it's proportional to the heft of the watch. I've seen some bigger, heavier watches, and then you just have a wimpy strap. Well, this is not a wimpy strap, and it does a real good job of keeping it on the wrist. So my wrist size is 7 inches, and so here it is. This is the Super KonTiki flyback chronograph on the wrist. Let's just talk a little bit about some of my likes and dislikes with the watch. And this first one is kind of interesting because it's a like and a dislike, and that is that it's a big watch. You know, sometimes it's too big, but then as I was wearing it for a couple days, I'm like, wow, I kind of like the feel of this guy. So you know, the Super KonTiki, it was growing on me. Sometimes the hand for the hours here, it's small. You know, I'm getting old. I have progressive lenses on my glasses, and sometimes it's hard to read that. But, you know, no big deal. I take off my glasses and look at the registers. It's a compromise, and one that I kind of like, having both hands in here to clean up the overall look of the dial, versus having 3 registers. So I do like the 2 register look. I think it balances the design of the watch very well. A little nitpick is the crown. Sometimes pulling it out, I'm turning and then getting it screwed back in. Sometimes I have to maybe go back and forth a little bit, and you know, I don't want to cross thread. There we go, and it goes right in. So little niggle there, but it's once it's in, it's secure, it's positive. Very nice on that. So some things that I definitely like, and my gosh, the feel of the chronograph is just brilliant. I mean, it has such a smooth, positive, and you know, I'm coming from a 7750 world. I own a 7750 chronograph, and as you guys know, if you own one of those, you really have to push down fairly hard. This just is such a nice, gentle push, and that the running seconds there is no wiggle, there's no jump, there's nothing like that. When you stop and start, it is so positive. So I love that. I really do. The lume on this guy is fantastic. It is just so bright, so wonderful. So if you were using this as a dive watch, you know, to time some intervals or whatever, having that lume on here and on the minute hands is great. Okay, so what's my takeaway on this guy? So I kind of call this a dressy diver or a dressy tool watch. It's has a little more bling with the blue sunburst style, and then the blue on the bezel, a little polished elements on here. So it is not your stealth all black business diver kind of a thing. And let's be realistic. There's a lot of people, myself included, you know, I definitely classify myself as a desk diver. You know, I've never been diving, but yet I own a couple dive watches. So this is, you know, perfect functionality with the rotating bezel, easy to time short periods of time, plus the chronograph. So it definitely has a lot of functionality, plus it has some character, absolutely some character with the blue and the lume and all that. So all in all, a pretty cool watch. So the Super KonTiki Chronograph is $4,700 US on a rubber strap. So, hey, if you like the video, be sure and give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to keep up to all the new videos that we'll be coming out with. And keep the comments coming in below. I really like the feedback, and, you know, throw some ideas in there for perhaps some watches that you would like me to review. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.